Yeah, this is it.
Sweet.
We're back at
Number
it
three.
again.
Number three.
Number 3,
Who would've
early
thought-
in the morning this time.
I know. I'm only on my second cup of coffee.
I stick to 1 or else I get the jitters.
You get one. You get jitters after the one.
Well, yeah, but it's a hell of a 1.
What do you put in there?
Just black coffee.
How stiff do you make it? Well, hold up a spoon.
But oh yeah, absolutely.
Sweet.
So
My wife and
what?
my wife and I in our wedding vows agreed to have 2 separate but equal coffee makers. So we call them Jim Crow coffee makers.
Oh my god.
And she drinks really weak ass coffee, and I used to drink really strong ass coffee. But over time, we've got down to just the one, so we're in violation as we move forward.
Oh man. I'm really sorry about that. That's really
okay.
weird too. Like you couldn't just use the same coffee maker and make different styles of coffee.
Well, back in the day, you know, when we were in school together, when we first started dating, we got up at the same time. So, you know, if you're trying to have coffee together, it's a pain in the butt.
Yeah, I guess so.
Plus, you know, one of those like Mr. Coffee makers is like, what, $10, $20 at Walmart?
Yeah, that's actually what I have.
That's a small price to pay for a happy marriage.
I guess so. If that's your big issue, then that's fantastic, dude. Good job.
I know, right?
So what's up? What's on your mind today?
I've got some items on the list. Some of them we could probably riff on longer than others.
Okay.
Let's start with a weird one, because I just sent an email to one of the people on this list, or at least one of the people that I've got as an answer on my list. So I think I wrote this article for One magazine like 7 years ago, and I don't think it ever got used. Either I didn't finish it or something came up, but it never ran. And the premise of the article is the most influential Texans in rollerblading.
I can see how that wouldn't have been ran.
No, I think I didn't finish it. I think I was waiting on a response from one of the people. I think that Justin thought it was a neat idea, and I think it was a neat idea. The thing that makes it neat is that the way that I've worded the question, it doesn't require Texas bladers to be the most influential Texans in rollerblading. Does that make sense?
Well, you have to be from Texas to be a Texan, so no.
But you don't have to be a rollerblader to be a Texan.
Oh, weird. Well, I don't know off the top of my head anyone that would have influenced rollerblading outside of rollerblading from Texas.
Okay, let me give you. Wait. Say that again. Sorry, we need more fucking coffee, man. Jesus.
That is true. I'm not in my best form right now.
All right, so let me give you an example from my list. There was a guy who was called Wild Bill, and Wild Bill ran a company called Pro Design out of Houston.
Okay.
And he made knee pads and wrist guards and shin guards and elbow pads and all that stuff. And in the early days of rollerblading, Pro Design was like the top, you know, was the benchmark, if you will, of pads, right?
Okay.
And back when pads were both mandatory and a fashion article, you know, having your shorts on with your, you know, rollerblade tarmacs and your big Pro Design knee pads looking like Chris Edwards was the thing.
Weird.
Anyway, so I would say that the influence that, you know, I think I could make a reasonable case that Wild Bill making those pads in certain ways had more influence on rollerblading than just a lot of skaters who came out of Texas. I wouldn't put Wild Bill at the top of that list, but I would put him on that list of an influential Texan in rollerblading who was a Texan but not a rollerblader.
Yeah. I guess that's a good example.
Another guy I can name like that is a guy called Ryan Corrigan. I've talked about him before. I think elsewhere, but so I think I might have talked about him on the Mushroom Blading podcast. Anyway, Ryan Corrigan is a BMX guy, and he came up under a bigger name BMX guy called Nate Wessel. You might have heard of him.
I have.
He was around today. Anyway, so Ryan Corrigan is a ramp builder, and he built with Nate Wessel a lot of places that you would recognize, including almost all the Woodward ramps and most of the X Games ramps. They might have done the ABC or the what was it called ABC Gravity Games. They might have done that. Tons of skate parks around everywhere. So that's a little bit more subtle in terms of influence, but as far as someone building the things that determine what and how you skate,
Yeah.
I think that there's a pretty reasonable case to be made for Ryan having a pretty large effect on rollerblading, even though he's not a rollerblader. But he is a Texan.
Who do you think's at the top of your list?
Oh, it's Arlo. I mean,
okay, I would have said Arlo too.
For better or for worse, Arlo, Jan, probably
oh
Lonnie.
My God, I didn't even think about Jan. Yeah, Jan was a huge influence on everyone.
Pretty much a Texan.
No, he counts.
Yeah. I would say Lonnie too, although Lonnie's lived in California a lot longer than he's lived in Texas.
I don't know. Would he consider himself a Texan though?
Would Lonnie? I doubt it. I mean, Lonnie and I have a similar kind of story where our formative years were in Texas, but most of the rest of our lives have been spent outside of Texas. So I wouldn't consider myself a Texan either. I've actually lived in Colorado longer than I've lived in Texas. And I've lived in not Colorado and not Texas as long as I've lived in either of those places.
Huh. Well, you're a Texan to me, dude.
Well, that's a one-sided argument.
And same to you, Lon. If you're in Battle My Crew in the VHSs and you're in the Texas crew, then you're a part of that culture. So sorry.
Well, but I mean, we had Rob G in those things. And Rob G's not a Texan. He just lived there for 2 years when that shit was going on. We had Ryan Northway in there too.
Texans, dude.
Lol.
I'm kidding. Yeah, that always confused me whenever I saw Rob G and like Matt Moya and people I knew that weren't from here in those.
Well, I mean, Rob came and lived with Lonnie for like 2 or 3 years, like right around 2000, from like 99 to 2002, probably.
Weird.
But I mean, Rob is often, I don't know, where the hell is he? Costa Rica or something?
I don't know. He's at some like meditation camp or something. I mean,
I think it's dope, dude. Rob was always a weirdo hippie like that.
Yeah. No, I do too. I like his lifestyle. I'm too scared to live it, so I envy it.
He goes hard on the yogi, man.
Yeah, man. I would also put Mike Yeager on the list of influential Texans in rollerblading.
I think that Mike is a good choice. I was, 2 years ago, maybe 3 years ago, I think it was maybe 2 years ago, Sean Santa Maria came out for the Colorado road trip, and his ride fell apart, and I didn't have a passenger. And so he hit me up and asked if he could ride with me, and I said, sure. And I was talking to Sean for a long time, and one of the things that I said to him was that I actually credit Micah and Sean for bringing back the 9-stair rail.
Yeah.
Like as a thing, like the idea that you go out and skate a 9-stair. I mean, I haven't skated a 9-stair like since the 90s. As soon as I got to the point where I could skate rails bigger than a 9-stair, there was kind of no reason to go back,
I would say 9 stairs are a little bit scarier than longer rails.
I certainly think so. My biggest problem in all cases is jumping on. Like if I jump on and I do a kind grind or misfit or something, like once I'm on the rail, balancing is the easy part, but just jumping on and locking on correctly and getting established, getting my affairs in order,
Yeah.
that's the hard part. And the problem to me with a 9 stair is that by the time that happens, you're off the rail.
Yeah, you got to be quick. And if you miss, you're just at the bottom.
I do, I do have a bias though. I think that the 9 stair is, in my mind, kind of a skateboarding rail. I don't know if that seems like an unfair bias.
What does that mean, a skateboarding rail, nowadays?
Well, so let's see. Joey McGarry had an interesting thing. He was talking about. I was talking about this thing. I think good style occurs when, suppose you see a photograph of a person doing a grind on rollerblades, right? Okay. Now, suppose you hold your thumb over the head of the person, so that you're just seeing the body and the rail that they're on. And suppose it's like a flat rail, not like a handicap rail or a stair rail where it's obvious, right, which direction they're going.
Yeah.
And to me, good style is where if you cover up the head where you can't see which direction the person is looking, you wouldn't know whether they're doing the forward version or backward version of the trick. In other words, I think that a forward royale, or obviously just a royale, should look the same as a Nugan.
Well, yeah, of course, with frame tricks,
just
but think about
look in the other direction.
Think about like a true topsoul, like a really laid out one. You're gonna look like you're going backwards for sure.
Well, I think that you shouldn't. I think that a true top soul, if that's what you're saying, a true top soul, if you cover up the head of the person and it's on like a flat ledge, ought to look like a backwards topsoul. Like it ought to just look like a topsoul. You ought to not know whether it's a topsoul or a true topsoul.
Well, they're gonna have to be looking behind them.
That's why you cover up their head, Cody.
Oh God, coffee, right?
Anyway, though, what Joey was saying about rollerblading tricks is kind of the reverse of what I just said, where if you cover up the feet, a rollerblade trick should not look like a skateboarding trick.
Unless it's a front side.
Even still, I think he might argue that a good front side would have maybe a kind of a UFO stance or something where you wouldn't stand on a skateboard that way.
That is true, and depending on the person, like your legs can get really wide, and that'd have to be a long old skateboard.
Yeah, exactly. So like a regular standard skateboard might not be long enough for the width of the stance that you might take on a really spread out front side. So maybe he has a preference for, in that case, a really spread out front side, like full on splits down the rail, or like I think that he would probably point to the backside that Josh Petty did on that cover of backside UFO that Josh Petty did on that cover of Daily Bread.
Yeah,
where you couldn't stand like that on a skateboard.
Yeah, Petty had
the
best.
Even if you took a couple of Post-it notes and covered up the feet, you couldn't locate a skateboard between those 2 feet.
Yeah.
Or at least not in the stance that he's in.
I was going to bring this up, and I'm trying to find a good caveat for this. If you were to cover up the feet nowadays of roller skaters, you couldn't tell the difference between rollerblading and roller skating. And I'm bringing this up because I've been skating with some roller skaters more recently and talking to them about what it is they're doing in their sport. And there's a lot of crazy parallels to what's going on right now with them as to what went on with us in the 90s.
Are you talking about grinds, or are you talking about actually skating on the ground?
I'm talking about grinds.
Okay.
Because they're doing tricks now, and they're skating bowls, and they're doing coping, and They're calling their tricks by rollerblade names.
Is that true?
Yeah, a Royale exists, a Unity, front side, back side, etc. Like all and Machio. I've heard somebody say Machio, and it was like the truck grind, the 50-50 style, one-footed
Oh,
grind.
that's interesting. I
It's
wonder if the old school dudes like what's his name, Brian Wainwright, and some of those other older guys. I wonder if they would do the same thing.
I don't think that the
Toto would be a good
old
person to reach out to find out if that's true.
I don't think the older dudes do, but a majority of that whole industry is a bunch of young girls.
Yeah.
And I guess a lot of rollerbladers in every scene have like reached out and had some sort of connection because that's how and why the names are being used.
That's
I think that's
interesting.
really weird.
I wouldn't. I mean, roller skates are going to have way fewer grinds than rollerblades do.
I don't think so.
Oh no, come along.
Well, I guess they can't really utilize topside, huh?
They can't do anything topside. They don't have a soul. They're like they don't. You don't have a soul.
Wait. This is wrong. Because think about using the truck. Like I saw Ricardo Lino roller skating and he did a what would be a true Miz on coping. But
Yeah.
instead of locking soul, he was locking the truck on the skate.
Right.
And if you were to do a kind grind, you would just do it in reverse direction. So I think they have
Right.
the
So,
exact
but you
same
don't.
amount.
No, because like in rollerblading, you've got true Mizu and then you've got kind grind. But you're not. You're just dealing with. I don't know. You're dealing with the difference between front
Oh,
side and back side.
they don't have negatives. Yeah, they couldn't do like true negative Mizu or something instead of kind grind.
Yeah, and the other thing is, I would be curious to see whether boot tricks exist. You know, like if you're saying that people do Royale, do they call it Royale? Number one, and number two, is it angled over and on the boot, or is it just some kind of weird front side?
Well, it can't be on the boot. They have these giant blocks in the middle of their skates. So they're definitely leaned the fuck over, but they can't get boots because their boots are pretty and they're leathery and they don't want to scuff them up.
So it's like an outside edge Royale.
You'd have to look at the equipment, dude. Like, there's no way you're getting boot with these giant ass blocks.
Yeah.
But
Well,
they're
but
definitely
in my view, if you can, we've got soul and we've got negative, right? And
right.
they're only going to get one of the two of those. They're not going to get both. So that already cuts the soul tricks in half of what's potentially out there.
I did see that one dude that's on Moxie, Travis Reynolds, who used to rollerblade.
Oh
He
yeah.
did a fish brain stall in roller skates.
That wouldn't surprise me. I mean, that guy, I think that guy's a big jerk, but I also think that he's a really talented guy.
Why do you think he's a jerk?
Oh, he came down and skated some TSSs, and he was not like a friendly person to be in the contest. It's like you put him against like Josh Glowicki, who's like the fucking happiest, friendliest guy in the world, you
Yeah.
know? And it's all like, oh, my bad, I went in front of you, you go ahead, I'll go after you, kind of stuff. Sort of gentlemanly conduct. And that dude's just like, everybody get the fuck out of my way. I'm here to earn this money, and it's like, man, come on.
Oh.
And it's just,
One of the
like he was snaking everybody just about every time. Mason had a really hard time with him in one TSS that comes to mind. It
Oh,
just,
jeez.
it doesn't come across as very friendly or comradey, even in a contest, which I think is an interesting aspect of something that we judge on without necessarily giving it a score in a contest.
Yeah, I understand that. Yeah, I mean,
Like,
not everyone learned etiquette.
yeah, you want to see some grace in the guy who wins, and especially when you're doing like a local comp, like a TSS. Like, you got people like Mason and Josh Glowicki going against like some local kids from Texas, and you come across as a big fucking asshole if you're not gracious to the guys who aren't as good as you.
Of course. Yeah, I've always said, like, who you are is more important than what you do. If that
Mm,
makes any sense.
yeah, except what you do constructs who you are.
Or I guess how you do it is more important than what you are doing.
That sounds like more of a Cody thing to say. I would still say again though that form and content can't really be separated.
Well, yeah, yeah. I mean, I'm not trying to fully separate it. I'm just trying to reiterate your point here, which is if you're going to be good and you're going to want to do well, then you need to do it well. Which in this
Well,
case would mean not being a scumbag and don't snake people.
or just be. I mean, snaking is like that happens sometimes. Like you're in the zone and you're going to do something hard or something that's hard for you, and you just go and you see somebody else go and you're like, oh, the train's already leaving the station. Sorry, bro, and you just do your own thing. That happens. But grace comes when you come back around and say, "Oh man, sorry, I was in the zone, dude. I'm really sorry. I'll make sure you get to
Yeah.
go first next time." Is different from just constantly doing that and then no apology, no grace, no nothing. But I don't know. I don't want to sit here and just rip on a guy, but I thought that number one, that guy's really talented, and to go from rollerblades to roller skates, it sounds like he's made a full conversion, as it
Oh,
were.
yeah.
Well, for instance, I've seen a number of clips in the last couple of years. He did the Green Goblin in Texas on roller skates. That guy, Travis Reynolds,
I know. It was gnarly.
which looked really scary to me, dude. I mean, a
Well,
royale on that
there's no
rail is a
cuff.
fairly safe thing to do, but a front side on those roller skates, and he didn't have that giant grind block you were talking about. Like his feet were hooked into the rail, and that's like a good way to get yourself suplexed, man.
Yeah, man. Yeah, their equipment's not really made well for what it is they're trying to do in them right now.
Well, I mean, we started that way.
I know. I'm not hating. I'm just saying. Like, if they took a pair of Adapts and took the sole plate off and just put some, like, trucks on there, that's perfect.
Well, Toto skates and skates like that. He wears like USD carbons with a flat platform and a roller skate bottom.
But in a weird way, I feel like it doesn't count. Like, I feel like you have to have some floppy, crazy-ass roller skates for it to count in their community, you know?
Well, so to me, there's a disconnect where in in evolution, right? There's this kind of misconception, I think, that evolution has ended, and that like we're at the top of the evolutionary pyramid, we're the smartest, and so on and so forth. But that it somehow stopped and nothing's going to come after us. But everything is evolving. Humans are continually evolving. Same with dogs and lice and ticks and snakes and everything else you can point to. But I do feel like in a lot of cases technology kind of does stop, I guess is how I would put it. So if you look, for instance, at something like the skateboard and you go from those pretty silly homemade skateboards in the 1950s, and then in the 70s you start to see those sort of penny boards, I think is what they're called.
Yeah,
That's sort of
the
very
short ones.
small. Yeah, and then in the early 80s it was like those really big sort of diamondback snake shaped, sort of penis shaped skateboards. And then eventually by the 90s they arrived at that kind of more or less symmetrical skateboard with a slightly longer, with the truck set back on the nose a little bit, but in general it's a symmetrical skateboard, and that's pretty much the standard, and they've sort of landed on that as the final skateboard. Now you still get some offshoots where you get some really strange looking longboards and stuff like that, but that's almost another species, as it were.
Yeah, they don't
And
claim
I've had
longboards.
some I've had some interesting conversations with Jake Barnes about whether rollerblades have reached their final form or not.
No way.
And I tend to be of the mind to think that we've pretty much got it. It's some kind of a boot with some kind of a cuff, with some kind of a sole plate, and some kind of 4 or 5 wheel frame. that mounts on a UFS type of scenario.
Well, I mean, of course it has to be a boot because it has to fit your foot.
Well, I would be hard pressed to call a Shadow a boot. That thing's just a monstrosity.
Yeah, Shadows. You're right.
It's basically just a glorified binding.
Yeah, I don't. I
But
think the possibilities of rollerblades are pretty endless.
I've always for about 18 years or so, I've been of the mind to think that everybody in general has been trending towards a lower cuff, and I really think that a much higher cuff is a better way to go.
For the way that we bend during like topsides and stuff, absolutely. Low cut is
Well,
dangerous.
a long time ago, when the Shima ones came out, the ones that had the big old Shima writing on the back of the liner, and the
Yeah.
liner stuck out like 4 inches or something above the cuff.
Yeah.
I made a pair of skates where I double cuffed those and made a cuff that came all the way up to the top and covered where it said Shima. And what that does, that gave me the ability to do really good torque grinds, especially front torque grinds, where the cuff is so high that it's actually the weight transfer from my body down to my foot is actually like going through the shin instead of going through the ankle. And I could stand on a front torque forever and balance and grind forever because it wasn't like my foot or my little ankle was trying to hold up my whole body. It was like, bigger part of my leg was bearing the weight.
I can feel how that would make things way easier.
So I've for a very long time, I've been of the opinion that cuffs should be getting higher rather than shorter. And, something like the original Remedy skate, I mean, that just seemed like a catastrophe to me.
And it was.
I don't know. I mean, Haffey did some shit in those things. He skated those. A bunch of people skated those.
That's your bar? That's your normal bar is Chris Haffey?
What do you mean?
Chris Haffey could put on literally anything and probably be better than everyone.
Well, I'm just saying that it's possible.
Yeah, I mean, I guess
Pat
there
Cantola
were
skated
one-offs.
really well in those. BJ Campbell skated really well in those. A bunch of other people. Toto skated pretty well in those.
Carlos
There was a lot of
Pianowski.
people. Yeah, Carlos did. So he was around back in the day when the original Rems were out? Or Remedies, not Rems?
Yeah, I don't know how big of a deal he was during the original ones, but I remember
that was a
seeing
pretty long
him
time
do
ago.
some crazy shit.
That was like 20 years ago.
Yeah, he was in one of Jan's videos skating those skates. One of the Daily Bread videos.
Oh,
I think.
yeah, you're right. I remember that. So let's go back real quick. Who else would you put on your list of most influential Texans in rollerblading? You added Micah Yeager, which I think is a good addition.
Oh man, that's it.
Any of the old school guys?
Huh?
Any of the old school guys? People like B Love or people like Sean Robertson?
No, I don't think Sean Robertson really influenced anyone.
He was amazing. He was like Spider-Man.
Yeah, he was good, but
He was amazing.
I didn't see a lot of people jocking and taking notes from Sean Robertson.
Yeah.
Also, this
Well,
is before
from
my
last
time,
time, though, you were talking about you saw Omar do that badass True Soyale or whatever and went and changed your pants instead of learning how to do a True Soyale.
Yeah, but Omar Weissong was on Mind Game. He was on Razors. He was a bigger deal back in the day. Sean Robertson was skating ASA contests. That's it.
Yeah, but ASA had some merit back then.
Yeah, but still, I didn't see droves of kids trying to skate like Sean Robertson.
Well, that's true. But it sounds like you weren't even trying to skate like Omar. You were trying to dress like Omar.
That's a thing.
Well, so you're saying that people weren't trying to dress like Sean or skate like Sean?
Maybe a couple. I have no idea. I wasn't really deep in the game back then. All I can do
I'll
is
say,
look
though,
back at it.
There was a whole bunch of people probably trying to smoke weed like Sean, that's for sure.
I think they're still trying to.
That might be. That dude could handle quite a bit.
I didn't even know B Love was from here.
B Love is from Houston.
Had no idea. Okay, another influential Texas rollerblader, Jeff Akers.
Oh yeah, Jeff would be a great candidate for that list.
Yeah, running things, like making all kinds of changes and differences over at Sunshine.
Yeah, I think that Jeff is a great example.
So he'd be in the top five because he's been around for a while now.
Yeah,
And
I would put Jeff on that list.
I think he is part of the reason that ground control went with the big frame and did all those new modifications, and the Razor shift happened.
Well,
Probably
so
he
yeah,
probably had some kind of influence.
Jeff I think is in a unique position in rollerblading because I think that he's having to balance market forces in a way that causes him to have to make certain decisions. Um, and I think that there's things that he would prefer to be different, but that there's nothing that he can do about it because he's trying to balance, culture and industry, in on one foot, as it were.
Yeah, go where the money is, man. That's what I say to that. Fuck the the culture and whatever it is you're trying to foster, and just keep your job around.
Well, that's the sort of I would say kinda to that because the culture is what drives the industry.
I don't think aggressive culture is driving our industry. I think that we're definitely piggybacking off the money that's made from recreational side of things.
Well, I mean that's not true with Razors or Sunshine.
Yeah.
I mean Scooters is supporting Sunshine
Jeez.
and Jeff for that matter. I mean Jeff is like holding it together with two hands.
Yeah. I don't know much about that side of things, like the scooter side.
Yeah,
Do
I thought
you?
we talked about this. Did I just imagine that? Maybe we talked about it in one of the off air, little off air, uh, one of our phone conversations.
Yeah, maybe. I don't even know what the company is called. The scooter company under
Oh, I
Sunshine.
don't either, and that's my bad. I should know.
Eh,
Me
I
and
don't
Jeff went
scooter, so
to
it doesn't matter.
Jeff. I was in Austin a couple years ago, and Jeff was there, and he needed to go to one of the scooter contests, and he and I went to it. It was like an all day street comp, and uh,
Uh oh.
sorry,
Was the last spot the Green Goblin?
yes, and those dudes, holy shit, there was probably like 50 children. Um, Imagine like 50 children, and like maybe three or four dudes who were like either in their late teens or early 20s. It was a sight to behold, man. It was such a it was such a freak show, dude. uh, but holy crap, those dudes threw down. One of the guys did like a forward three over the goblin all the way out to the street, and
Holy
oh my god,
shit.
he ate shit so hard so many times trying to get there. He
Did he
probably
land it?
attempted it 10 times. Yeah, he landed it in the end. Um, but
Wow.
God, he must have eaten shit like 10 times before he got it, and that's not an easy fall 10 times in a row.
Yeah, Andrew Broom fell once and was toast.
Right.
Who broke their ankles on that gap that rollerbladed?
Fleener for sure. Actually, we just saw Fleener at the Duke City Ditch Comp last week,
Yeah,
this
you were telling me
weekend.
last time.
Yeah. Fleener for sure broke his ankle. I don't think that Jason Howard ever broke his ankle. Jason jumped it the hard way, and Nick Riedel jumped it the hard way, um, which is straight. And back in the day, there was like the staircase came down, and then there was a sidewalk, and then there was a gutter, and then the road crowned up towards the middle of the road. You know what the crown on a road looks like?
Yeah.
So back in the day, you had to jump it over the stairs, over the sidewalk, past the first lane of traffic into the second lane because you have to land at the top of the crown so it's flat because otherwise you're landing on an uphill.
Yeah.
And a whole bunch of people who only made it past the sidewalk and not into the second lane of traffic or the second driving lane just collapsed because you're landing on like an uphill bank basically. So you have to jump it all the way
Ugh.
past that first lane. So you really got to be cooking.
Ugh. Fuck that. Yeah, I think that Scooter Kid's probably the only person that ever has 360'd the Goblin on anything.
Um, I can't say this for sure, but I would be surprised if a biker hadn't done it. Just because there's been so much bike talent in Austin over the years.
That's true.
I mean, that guy, whatever his name was, Jimmy Levan or whatever, jumped the church gap. And the
Oh
church gap
yeah,
is gone now, or at least what it was when he did it.
Jimmy
And that's
LeVon
insane.
owns metal bikes. I think. Older dude.
Maybe, I don't know.
Is that guy from here?
But I don't think so. I think he was a transplant. I mean, the way that San Diego used to be like the world center of rollerblading when it was like Daily Bread and Senate and, and then later with, Rat Tail and all that stuff. San Diego was like the world center, or at least we perceived it as the world center of rollerblading. And Austin was that for BMX forever.
And still is, I think.
It might be. I'm
I
not
wonder where
well
the
connected
scooter
to that
hub
scene
is.
anymore. I don't know. That's such a weird thing.
I wish I could talk to someone in scooter world that's like of worth and knows shit.
Talk to Jeff.
Oh yeah. Well, I don't want to bug him.
I don't know if you try. I mean, he's not gonna bug him if you send him an email and ask him 4 questions.
That's true, but I feel like if I was the manager of Sunshine and I got off work, the last thing I would ever want to talk about is work. Which is weird because, your work is fucking rad and it is a sick ass hobby, but, if, too much of a good thing is not a good thing.
I don't know, man. I run a company and all I do is deal with that shit all the time. It's like 24 hours a day, it feels like.
You're making dog oil now?
Yeah, we do. It's called Pet Tracks. It's for dogs and cats. You can give it to horses too.
Ooh, what does it make the dogs do?
It's good for pain for dogs and it's good for anxiety for dogs. Some dogs are more anxious than others.
Yeah,
but
Mr.
I think
Jojo
anxiety
gets...
and pain.
Huh?
Anxiety and pain are probably the main 2 things that people give it to their pets for.
Yeah, I have a corgi, Mr. Jojo, and he gets real anxious and scared during storms. I should probably dose him up.
Fucking Cody Cosby over here.
Sorry. But no, I mean,
No,
I
it's
might
not
actually
like that.
consider
It's just
that.
the dog. Like when I've given it to my cat and my one of my partners gives it to all 3 of her dogs, and instead of like running around freaking out, they just kind of chill out. They're not high because there's nothing in there that would make them high, but they just sort of chill out.
Well, that's nice.
Like they still go around and they still do stuff and they'll still bark if they're concerned about something, but instead of running around crazy, anxious, they just kind of chill out.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with that. I do all kinds of things that make me chill the fuck out whenever I'm at home, so might as well let the dogs do it too.
Exactly.
That's funny, dude.
So I've got another topic.
Huh? Okay.
I got another topic. All right, so I want to talk for a second about what I'm going to call vague representations. Okay?
Talk for a second.
All right. So I think that so it's very common to have a kind of a vague understanding of something, right? So if I asked you any questions about the specifics of the various Caesars who ruled Rome, right? You're probably not going to have any idea about who was who, right? Was Caesar Augustus older than Caesar Octavian? Was Caesar Octavian and Caesar Augustus the same guy? Was Julius Caesar a different guy? Which one was older? You don't know, right? Do you know?
I don't know.
Okay. But you know that there was a bunch of Caesars and that they ruled Rome.
Yes.
So I would call that a vague representation or even like a good enough representation, right? You know enough to know that it existed and that it was a thing and that it was a long time ago. And unless you need to know the specifics, you're not going to bother. Does that sound about right?
Yep.
Would you say the same thing for a human evolution timeline?
Yes.
So, like, if I started naming off like Homo habilis, Homo australopithecine, Homo erectus, Homo sapiens, right? You probably know that Homo sapien is us, and it's the last one.
Yeah, I knew two
But
out of four on the list.
okay, but could you place them in order?
Didn't you just do that?
I don't know. I don't think so. I think that Homo australopithecine was the first. He was the first one to be a biped to like stand up and walk around.
Yeah, he still kind of looked like a monkey.
I mean, he definitely got that sort of caveman look with the big jaw
Yeah,
and the
like
small
Neanderthal
forehead.
status.
Well, yeah, except Homo neanderthalis lived concurrently with humans, modern humans, because they
That
only
must have been
died off like
weird.
10,000 years ago.
Yeah, I knew they were more current.
Okay. So this is all I'm trying to say. You have this kind of like vague understanding that like, yeah, that was a thing. There was a bunch of different ones. They probably went in some order. It probably matters, but it doesn't really matter to me, so I don't really need to know. You know?
Okay.
So it's interesting to me to be talking to some younger rollerbladers and to sort of hear their vague representation or sort of understanding or what they know and what they don't, where certain of these things are very are significant in my kind of understanding of the timeline of rollerblading, and some people that I would put as being significant in the kind of grand timeline of rollerblading. Some of these younger guys that I talk to don't know who they are even. So I was talking to somebody in New Mexico last weekend, and he didn't know who Jess Darenforth was. He just never heard of
Weird.
Jess Darenforth. And I don't necessarily fault him because if you're able to do what this guy can do, and you've never heard of him, like clearly you didn't need to know who he was in order to do whatever, to be dope at rollerblading. So I think in certain ways, there's a bias towards, everybody thinking that everyone should know what you know, you know.
So just to be
But
clear, because I know what Jess Dyrenforth looks like, and I know he owned England Clothing, right?
in 50/50,
And 50/50. Okay, so is he a part of the 50/50 resurgence?
I don't believe so. But I thought I heard Law say something along the lines of he had got in touch with Jess to see what he thought about it, and Jess just said, he's busy. If you want to go for it, go for it. But I'm not. I don't think he's trying to like run shit over there. I
Cool.
think Law just found the molds and got some frames made up or whatever, and that's the extent of it.
You're
I don't think
calling
that they've got
Law
like a corporate.
Lawrence Ingram, right?
Yeah, everybody used to call him Law back in the day.
I had no idea. Now I know.
Well, yeah, there again. That's what I'm saying though, is that these details don't matter. Like you got through your life up until now just fine without knowing that everybody used to call Lawrence Law.
I was just making sure I had the right information on who ran 50/50.
That's fair enough. That's fair enough.
I really like that his channel right now. He's reviewing all these different skates. Have you
Yeah,
been
I've
watching
watched it.
that?
That it's called Back to Blading or something like that.
Well, yeah, it's back to blading, but he'll get really in depth, and he's just an average rollerblader, So he's treating it like how we all would with new skates and talking about things I can actually relate to, and I really like watching him do all these.
Yeah, yeah, they do a podcast too.
I knew about the podcast. I haven't really had a chance to check it out yet.
Year of podcasts,
Yeah, number 50, Blake
2018.
God. Oh, that's sick, dude. I want to do some more because I've done a couple, but I don't want to look like I'm jocking him now. You know,
Do some more what?
some more. Oh
Product
my
reviews?
god, I'm blanking. Reviews and stuff.
we'll do it. I mean, product reviews have been around since the beginning of time.
Yeah, I
As
know.
long as there have been products, there have been product reviews.
I don't know what it is I really want to try right now. Like, I'm going to buy wish frames for sure, but there's already been a review done. Everyone knows all about them. So that'd be boring.
Well, I don't know. Maybe it's. I think it's still worth doing a review because the people who would watch a review from you aren't necessarily the same people who would watch a review from Lawrence.
That's true. Whenever I did that
And
adapt one, I got a really positive response.
you got to
So I,
support. You got to support Cletus, man. We got to drive money into his pocket and get those frames out there because Cletus is dope.
yeah, I like that it's a completely different option from any other option we've all ever had before. What's his end goal? Is he just trying to make, a small run of frames for funsies, or is he trying to come up and make a legit company?
Um, I think that I mean we should ask him. I can send him an email and ask him what his end goal is. And we should probably hold off on speculating until we get his answer from him. But I think that everything that I've got from Cletus in talking to him for the last couple of years is very, I don't know how to describe it, realistic, you know,
Yeah.
where he's in a position in his life where he's able to make these frames and do a fair bit of traveling and do a good amount of skating and make a contribution. And I don't think that he's got, again, I don't, God damn it, I'm blowing up. I don't think that he has any kind of like pie in the sky, um, global takeover, about to make millions in the rollerblading industry. I don't think he's got any notions like that.
Do you think the bigger wheeled frame is here to stay in aggressive forever now? Like, I think
Hmm.
small wheel frames are dead.
No, no, I don't think so. I like if you track the through the long and storied history of rollerblading, there's always been this kind of division between flat and anti-rocker, and then I mean I don't know. I think that there's room for more than one frame setup, and I really don't think that I. Well, okay, so one of the other things that I would say to that is that there are a whole lot of people, and this has more or less been true the entire time in rollerblading, that a whole lot of people just aren't blade nerds, right? They don't pay attention to their wheel size or hardness. Maybe they only care about color. Maybe they don't give a shit and they just ride whatever they can get their hands on, or get their hands on for free, or get their hands on cheaply, or whatever. I mean, I feel like you and I had a conversation a long time ago, probably at one of those Austin coffee shops, where we were talking about wheel profile. And I
Yeah.
think, as my memory serves, you said something to the effect of, I've never paid attention to that ever.
Yeah,
And
I
that would
just
have
wanted
been
it to
like,
be 60 mil. That was it.
right, but you just were just totally unaware that, there's big differences that can come from wheel profile.
And the reason I was unaware is because growing up, there weren't a whole lot of different options. Everyone kind of made the same wheel for 10 years.
I would say kind of. I think it depends significantly on what you pay attention to. Because
So,
there definitely weren't, like, in 2005 there weren't a whole bunch of companies making 72 mil wheels with a super sharp V cut in them. Like, I agree with that, but even within the realm of the kind of standard aggressive wheels that were out, you still had a pretty wide variety of like super square all the way to like round, like straight up round wheels, round in profile. I mean, obviously.
maybe it's
Um,
because I wasn't paying attention, but I don't remember any round profile wheels. I remember them all being flat, and I remember there was always an option between 55 and 60, and that was all I had.
Well, so I as memory serves me, K2 made a sort of a V-cut flat combo V-cut flat wheel with those green face wheels. Those have been around forever, and that profile has been around forever. Uh, I can't name a specific, but Hyper and Rollerblade used to make wheels right up through, the turn of the century timeline, that had a very round profile.
Yeah.
So, and the wheels that came on the different Razor skates at various times had a round profile. Most of the time, what they do is you use the same wheel and then you just shave it down. So when you see like a profile interrupted by a flat spot, it's just because they've shaved that wheel to make it a different size.
Yeah.
So you've just sliced off the outer mill or so of that wheel to give it that flat profile on the bottom. And that's an easy and cheap way to take the same wheel mold and make 2 different size wheels or 3 different size wheels. Everybody does it.
Huh. I never thought about it like that.
Because that cutoff is just an interruption in what would have been the original, pouring of that wheel.
Yeah. So, Frank, right now, I think you and I should take a short break, and I'll cut this out of the podcast so it'll just loop right to it. But I know we just drank a fuck ton of coffee, and I'm
Absolutely,
trying to go to the bathroom.
I'm dying. Let's go. 1, 2, 3, go.
Woohoo! All right. One sec.
All right, bye.
All right, back at it again.
Yeah, so the point that I was going to make is that along the same lines as that sort of vague representations thread that I was on a second ago, and these kind of blend together, not knowing a lot of details about your wheel profile or any of the other details, like if it doesn't matter, then if it doesn't make a difference, then it doesn't matter. So if you're able to skate, and you did for years, because this conversation that you and I had about wheel profiles was probably like in 2011 or 2012. So you made it all the way to 2012 without ever even thinking about it. So you were doing just fine without it.
Yeah,
so
but it's more fun with it.
Well, but I also think that once you know about it, you think there's a bias where you think that everybody else should know about it also, because maybe your life has got better by a magnitude of 10 since you learned about wheel profile. But so therefore you think that everybody else should know about it and everybody else should care about it, but it's not necessarily true.
Well,
because you were doing just fine, loving rollerblading, to whatever extent you loved rollerblading for the whole time until you heard about that, and it got you this far.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right. Back whenever things were easy and I didn't have to worry about different types of rollerblade technologies to make me happy.
Well, so what's interesting is that, to me, there's a parallel here with like language development. Okay, so if you make it to about puberty without learning a language, you have a very, very hard time of learning a language. And some people have suggested that it's impossible to learn a language if you've made it that far without learning one. And you get this in most cases. You don't get like a Tarzan type of scenario where you were raised in the jungle by cartoon animals and never learned a language. Most people get it because they were abused by their parents and they were kept in a closet and shit like that. But another large category of people who make it to puberty without learning a language are people who are deaf in countries where there's no support for deaf people.
Yeah.
And so if you make it your whole life, your brain has figured out ways to get by in the world. And it basically figures, if we can kind of personify the brain kind of figures, well, I'm just shutting off the resources to learn language because I've been able to succeed and be successful this long without it. So, I need those resources for other things, and I'm just going to shut down the ability to learn a language. And the difference with some of these insights that you get, that maybe you had a vague representation or a vague understanding of something before, it's different from language where you're not stuck not being able to understand it. right? So you can go all the way. You started skating in, I don't know, 95 or 97 or whatever it was, and you made it all the way till 2012, let's say, 2011, without ever hearing about wheel profile. But now you've heard about it, and now you think it's interesting, and now you think there's this whole new world of opportunity to discover, and so now you care about it, and you're able to care about it. Whereas someone who doesn't learn a language by the time they're 14 pretty much can't.
So you've studied cases of kids that have been found that haven't learned language until like 13 or 14, right?
Well, so in general, if you make it to 13 or 14, you can't.
Well, that's what
Right?
I
Around the
mean
time.
that. So, my question is, what happens to these kids? Like, where do they go? Because they're obviously not crazy. They just don't know how to function in society. What happens to these kids when they grow up?
Well, I think it depends massively on where they are, right? If you're a child of a sexually abusive parent who kept you locked in a closet and never spoke to you, so you never learned a language, you're probably going to wind up in some kind of permanent housing where you're, for lack of a better word, institutionalized. Um, some people, if you're in a, where you wind up living in some kind of a home, some kind of a institution. If you're in like an industrialized country, if you're not in an industrialized country, you're probably going to wind up like, homeless and probably crazy, just because you don't have regular access to regular support, regular food, regular shelter, regular friendships, you know. But there have been interesting strides that I've read about in a lot of South American countries, where some of these more rural communities have recognized that the problem with so many cases like this that we're talking about have to do with people who are deaf. And if you catch it early enough, you can grab that person up and put them in a community of other deaf people, and they can still learn to sign. But people who like, if you make it past puberty, even learning how to sign is going to be very difficult.
Weird. I
So
wonder if
it
that's
depends
why
massively on where you are.
I wonder if that's why I can't back Savannah. I waited too long in Blade Life to learn it, and I'll just never learn it.
That's that's an interesting thing to speculate about. I think that a similar parallel is people who wait too long to learn how to ride fakie switch.
Yeah.
Like, your brain just doesn't want to do it, your body just doesn't want to do it, and probably you're just never gonna get it.
Ooh.
But I don't know. I mean,
Language
I've seen
question.
people who are fairly older who've learned how to skate fakie switch and been reasonably proficient at it, even though they learned it way late.
If you didn't learn how to roll your R's like your entire growing up life, and you tried to do it whenever you were like 20 something, do you think you're just completely unable to learn how to do it?
So this is not my area of linguistics. People who are phonologists are the ones to speak to on that. But I feel like there's a genetic disposition towards being able to roll the R, because it has to do with the way that your muscles work in your tongue.
Hmm.
So I think that it's possible that you could make it to 25 years old and then learn how to do it. And I also think it's possible that you could just live your whole life without the ability to do it.
Sheesh. The only reason I ask is because I've been doing Duolingo for 4 years now, off and on, and it's Spanish. And the app will say I'm, 50% fluent, but whenever I go to speak it, I can't roll my R's. I just can't do it. Been trying for years.
I will have to get back to you on that. I don't want to say one way or another, because I have a bias to think that it's one thing, but I don't know for sure.
Okay.
So we can put that for follow up for next time.
Sweet. Because I want to know if I should just quit trying or not.
Yeah, it's possible. It's possible that you could just be fucked and you just can't do it. You like, so you know how people have attached or unattached earlobes?
Yeah.
Okay, that's genetic. You either have or have not that. And same thing if you look at your hands very closely. Um, so suppose if you're looking at your hands and suppose you had a ring on your finger, that first little segment where a ring would go, right? If you go to
Yeah.
the next segment, right, the sort of the middle segment of your finger, if you hold that up so that you can look at that from the side, you will have either one or two little hairs on any of your fingers or none. Maybe you got like full Neanderthal and your knuckles are hairy as shit. But that hair growing on that middle segment is totally genetic, and you either will have it or not have it, and there's nothing that you can do to change it one way or another. So my
Dang.
inkling is that the rolled R's are it's a hereditary ability, but I'm not certain on that, so I don't want to say.
Well, my whole family
That's
can't
my,
do it.
well, that that would be good evidence.
Well, they all don't speak another language. They all speak just English. So there's no
Yeah, and
reason
you
to
could
learn.
also right.
Okay. Now I know. So
My
Frank.
point though
Oh,
about the vague representations though, it goes to the idea that um we build in a bias where you learn something and then you think, "Oh my god, this is amazing." Or something has been a part of your understanding of history for a very long time and you think that everybody else should know that also. And it's clear that you don't have to have that shared knowledge to be able to do whatever the thing is. So like you can be a really good rollerblader and have never heard of Jess Darenforth.
yeah. But you can't be a really good rollerblader and have never heard of getting boot on your Royale.
I would tend to agree, but I
Yeah.
wouldn't call that an absolute thing.
This is BL8GODS. This is the rule.
We're gonna be at odds every time that kind of thing comes up.
I know, it's a joke.
Well,
Uh,
be that as it may, didn't
So
have me
Frank,
rolling in the eyes.
I was going to say it's 11:30 my time
Yeah.
and it's a beautiful day. It's my day off. And this has been a badass podcast, but I'm going to go skate the skate park.
Now that's hilarious.
I'm juiced. Woke up, drank some coffee, kicked in, talked to my buddy about skating. I'm all fucking hyped, dude.
Hang on, I want to do one more. I want to do a piece of follow up.
Gosh darn it. Okay.
We're not signing off just yet.
All right. All right.
So, in the last podcast that we recorded, podcast number 2, hashtag Blade Gods.
Like,
You went off to pee, and I had to do like a 2-minute monologue.
yes.
Okay, and so in that monologue, I was talking about blade nerds, and you and I got on the same page with what I think a blade nerd is. It's not somebody who dedicates their life to rollerblading and goes all over the country and does all that. It's about people who have a hyper-specific bias or knowledge set about a particular aspect of rollerblading. So the categories that I named were included. They included tech blade nerds, where they know everything about the different wheel profiles and skates that have been made and technological attempts at solving the grinding problem, different attempts at finding negative problems, so on and so forth. You also have like a fashion blade nerd, which is probably you, where you could probably give us a comprehensive history of rollerblading through pants with a Z.
Oh, for sure.
Right? And then you have other kinds of blade nerds who know like every single trick that was done by every single person everywhere ever in a video. So that's at least 3 kinds of blade nerds. And my inkling is that among the categories of blade nerds, you have fairly close numbers as far as how many tech blade nerds there are, how many pants blade nerds there are, how many, tricks in videos blade nerds there are, right? Like I imagine those groups to be about the same size.
Yeah.
But the question that I want to get to is, of the whole population of rollerbladers, what percentage of them is in a nerd group? Because I actually think that it's probably something on the order of 75% of rollerbladers aren't blade nerds of any kind,
I was going
and
to say only
25%.
10% are.
10% are blade nerds?
Yes.
Okay, okay. So how would you divide up among that 10%? How would you divide up the different categories? Do you think it's about, maybe 2% for each category, or do you think there's overlap where people might be more than one kind of blade nerd?
I think whenever it comes to history, video history, there's probably a lot of those. I think that there
Okay.
are a lot of gearheads, is what I'd call them. Like
Yeah.
people who are all stoked about different kinds of frames and things. And I think the smallest category is probably the fashion police one. In
Do
fact,
you
I
think
think
that
that's
there
only
are
like
other
5 people.
are there other kinds of blade nerds that we've left out?
Yes,
I mean, at
but
least half of
I'll have
rollerblading
to
is
give
running a
thought to that.
podcast right now. So there's the podcast nerd, and that's fully half of rollerblading, it seems like.
Yeah. Yeah, hell yeah.
Do you think that all these podcasts are just broadcasting out into the void, and you and me are really the only people involved in this, or do you think that there's a good amount of people listening to all these dozens of podcasts that are out there?
I think the 10% Blade nerd community, 2% of those people are divided up in between all 50 podcasts.
Oh, I don't know. I think a lot of people listen to the mushroom blading one.
Yeah, mushroom blading one's tight. I think the true
They're
spin
clearly
one
at the top of the
actually,
heap.
huh?
They're at the top of the heap for sure. I think that that's like the main. That's like if there were like rollerblading's podcast, it's the mushroom blading one.
Absolutely. They started it and they have the most tenure, you know?
Yeah, they're OG. I think they're the most OG.
Well, that's not going to stop me from doing it. Like, I don't care if anyone listens. I just want to do it because I want to put our thoughts down on paper and, like, have a platform to make you and I really think and talk and explore what it is we do, you know?
Well, that's man. I'm blowing up. That's lovely. I think what you said.
It's important.
I think that's I think that's lovely.
It's important to me
I
because
also
this
think that we're
is...
just
Huh?
broadcasting out into the void.
Well, yeah, you can catch if you want to. You can come with us if you want to.
I feel like most of my articles in rollerblading that I've written for One and for BMag and all that, I think that most of them, I think there's about 100 dudes who read my shit, and that's about it.
That's awesome. It's 100 guys that are like-minded and interested. That's more friends than I have, you know, like 100 people that really give a fuck about what you think.
Yeah, no, and that's absolutely true. And I didn't start writing articles to try to get 20,000 followers, not at all. But I think it's the same kind of thing. I think that a small committed audience is great, and I hope that we can build a small committed audience.
I hope so too. And I hope that if anyone does listen, y'all want to talk and you want to comment because I don't want to just talk to Frank. I want to hear everyone's thoughts and opinions on what's going on and, you know, explore what it is we love to do and figure out why.
Well, I think then you should post these recordings.
Yeah. I'm gonna do that today. I'm posting number 2 today. I just
Number one's at
it,
30 views, man.
wow, big 30. Shout out to the
Big 30.
homies.
Actually, I can check right now. I've got it right here. Although if I look at it, is that going to make another view?
I
It's
have
at
no idea how
32.
that
If I click
works.
on it, will it go to 33?
I have no idea.
I think three.
No, it didn't go to 33. It would just stayed at 32.
Cool. Yeah, I think you actually have to listen to some of it for it to track a view.
Oh, it doesn't count as a view if you just click on it?
I have no idea, but that's just what I think. Could
Well,
be
that's
wrong.
fair enough.
It could have just
Fair
been
enough.
me checking it like 15 times, making sure it's good.
Yeah, I've listened to it once, and I've clicked on it probably 3 times now. So your 15 and my 3 puts us at 18. So then maybe we've got more like 10 people rather than 30, because
Yeah,
you and me
and
are 2/3 of the views.
jeez. And then we have like 2 of our friends and our moms probably watched it, and that's it. Sick.
Oh, my mom didn't watch this shit.
Yeah, same. My mom doesn't give a fuck.
My mom's
But yeah.
hilarious though. My mom's actually coming up the day after tomorrow.
Oh, cool. What's up? What's up, Mama Stoner?
Yeah, my mom's hilarious, dude. Every time she goes to Whataburger, she takes a picture of her food and sends me a text of it and says, "Sorry about you."
That's awesome. I'm gonna start doing the same thing.
Well, the more people eating Whataburger, the better, because I need that company to get rich so they can expand to Colorado.
That's my favorite burger ever.
Oh yeah, mine too.
I
It's just so
remember,
much salt. It's just so much salt, dude. I feel like it's 50% beef, 50% salt.
I crave salt. So years ago, 10 years ago, Mike Torres and the Rochester crew and a couple of dudes from Europe were touring around the nation in an old 80s limo. They broke
Sick.
down in Shreveport, and Jason
Oh,
Rayner
God.
reached out to me to house these dudes I'd never met. And it was Mike Torres, Tim Adams, Mike Welland, and Dan Birch.
You were living in New Orleans, or you're living in Shreveport?
No, I was in Tyler.
Oh,
This is
okay.
10 years
What is
ago.
it, like an hour or two?
Yeah, it's an hour and a half. So
Okay, from
they
Tyler
put
to
putter in
Shreveport.
the Tyler, and they make it there really late at night. And I take them all, these Northeast kids and these Europe kids, I take them to Whataburger because that was just normal to me.
Right.
And they order like the small fry and the small Coke or whatever. And they bring out the shit. And the guys are like, "Oh my God, this is a small? This is a large. This is an extra large. This is absurd." And they weren't used to it being greasy. And they were just in awe of Whataburger.
Hell
And
yeah,
they
because
all woke up
Whataburger's
the next day
dope.
sick.
Yeah. Us Americans, man, our colons are made out of leather. We've been eating plastic for 20 years.
That's fucking right. And it's delicious.
Hell
I'm
yeah.
gonna get some today and text you. Sorry about you.
You should put that as the image for the podcast.
The thumbnail, just a quadruple stack Whataburger.
With just cheese and grease leaking out of there. Half a salt mine leaking out onto your plate.
I might buy that just to take the picture and then feed the other patties to my dogs, just for fun.
Oh yeah, Whataburger is so good.
Fuck yeah, dude.
Half the reason
So-
to go to the Ditch Comp was to go to the Whataburger in New Mexico.
Worth it.
Totally worth it. Hashtag no regrets.
Yeah, regret. Well, let me go make these regrets, Frank.
Cool, man.
Good talk though.
Yeah, good talking to you. I feel like
Thank
we hit most of the points that I was going for anyway. I think we did all right this time.
Yeah, we'll never hit all the points, but that's good. We'll have some for later.
Yep.
So until next time, homie.
Sounds good. Yeah, I'll be in touch about the next one.
All right, sounds good. I'll talk to
All
you
right.
soon, bud.
Thanks for listening, everybody, and thanks, Cody.
Yeah. Bye, everyone.